everyone. Thank you so much for having me tonight. My name is Mo Beck, and you can go ahead and flip first. So this has been quite the weekend for me because I am not a boulderer. I always said I don't really like it because this is usually how I climb on ropes. But I want to thank this community for making me feel so welcome today because I actually climbed my hardest outdoor boulder today. So that was pretty awesome. And I have the luxury of calling myself a professional climber. But as opposed to other professional climbers you may know, I'm missing something. And other than a healthy dose of common sense, I'm missing a hand. And I figure a great way to introduce myself to y'all tonight is to tell you the story of how I lost my hand. This is a wood chipper. You can rent them for $300 a day from a local Home Depot, and they often don't have their safety guards or come with instructions. They're really dangerous. Unfortunately, this is not how I lost my hand. So I have to make up stories because I was just born without my hand. Like, I don't have any fun stories, no blood and gore. I just kind of came out screaming and lopsided. And actually in the delivery room, because I was born back in the 80s when some crazy shit was happening and weird drugs were going down, the doctors actually offered to chop all the toes off of one of my feet and sew them onto the end of my stump to be some like Dr. Toefinger, which is definitely the origin story of a James Bond villain. Fortunately, my parents said no, we're gonna take her home just like she is. And I was their first kid. And so I started life out kind of alone. I was the only person like me. I was the only kid with a disability in my school. I didn't even know that word, disability. I was just a different kid. And my parents did the best they could having a different kid. And they decided to raise me in the outdoors, doing outdoorsy things. And they decided not to treat me any different. And I can't really judge their parenting style because I'm not a parent, but I have to imagine, have you ever seen a three-legged dog? They're just missing their leg. They just hop around sniffing butts. Like, they don't know they only have 3 legs. And I think young kids are like that too. Until you tell them that they're different, that they're the only one, they don't realize it. And while I'm not an expert in parenting, I am, next slide, I am an expert in three-legged dogs. I have one. This is Gimp Biscuit. If you guys are cool with it, I can just spend my 20 minutes talking about her. She's pretty fantastic, but next slide. And so my parents tried to make me feel not alone. There were no support groups, there were no adaptive anythings, so I did normal sports. They needed to get this psycho energy out of me, and so I did normal sports. This is me doing track and field, high jump. As you can see, it's really not that high. I wasn't that good at it. It didn't stick. But the outdoors did stick. And alone, I kept pushing it. And of course, I had friends and I had mentors. But when you're the only one who's like you, it's a lot of extra work. You stand out. It's cool to be special, but being special is so exhausting sometimes. And when I found rock climbing at Girl Scout camp, where I was the only kid with a disability, all of a sudden it was me and this rock. And unlike track and field where I had teammates, unlike soccer where I just got kicked in the nards a lot and wasn't good at that either, it was me and this rock. And this rock didn't care that I was a 12-year-old girl. It didn't care that I had a disability. It's a rock, it's an inanimate object. But I had a relationship with this thing for the first time in my life that I could play with and work with, but it didn't care what I did or didn't have. And all of a sudden, with me and this rock, I wasn't alone anymore. Rock climbing's a hard thing to do as a 12-year-old girl whose parents don't climb. Like, the craziest things we did were like chase moose in the off season. We didn't even ski, that was too crazy. But I still tried to climb wherever I could. This is me at my brother's Boy Scout camp. They had a fake wall because they had money. But I had no other resources. I had to invent my way of climbing because, not to date myself, this is before you could just Google how to do something. And so I'm actually wearing a prosthetic hand here, which you would think could be helpful, but it's actually like salsa dancing in ski boots. Like, it could look interesting, but it's pretty freaking useless. And I kept doing my own thing. And I tried to bring friends along with me. That's me and that really cool super 90s hemp necklace, dragging my friend Katie up the closest climbing I could walk to from my house. I grew up on the coast of Maine, but the closest climbing was this bluff behind the county jail. And as you're scrambling, you're like, there's broken glass and hot cigarettes everywhere. But we kind of didn't care, because at some point we had decided we were rock climbers, damn it. And the coolest thing about climbing is it doesn't matter how hard you climb, how often you climb. If you make that decision to be a climber, that's what you are, even if it is some grungy hellhole behind the county jail. Everyone here Surprise, congrats. You're rock climbers. I did have to do even more on my own. I don't know if anybody here has ever been the first or the only one like you, and you feel a lot of pressure to not just be good, but be better than everyone else. I remember when I went to kindergarten, my mom was just like, you're gonna learn how to tie your shoes before you go to school, because no one is gonna tease you because you have one hand. And so I learned, I get to kindergarten, everyone's in frickin' Velcro. But you still have this mindset of needing to be better than, needing to be excellent at. And so I had to teach myself how to belay. What good is a climbing partner if they can't belay you? How sketchy is a little girl with one hand trying to learn how to belay? But I taught myself, and I found partners who would willingly take the risk while I figured it out. It turns out I'm a super safe belayer. It's great. But until I could figure that out, which took years, especially when it comes to lead belaying, it took years to figure out how to do that before I felt like I could be accepted as a whole climber. I didn't have anybody to teach me, hey, you know what? You're missing your left hand, and it could really suck if all the protection or the clips are on the left side. What are you gonna do? How are you gonna get past that? In this case, this photo is on the Corrigal's route in Castleton Tower. I friggin' bailed. I punted, and I came down, and I top roped that thing, and it was still awesome. But I never had anybody to show me how to do it. The thing is, though, I didn't consider myself as disabled. I knew I was special. I knew I was different. I knew I was the only person in the room like me 90% of the time, but I wasn't disabled. That was always a negative word. It's a dis. You can't do anything. It's like something you're missing. It wasn't until I started ice climbing that I realized, actually, I do have a disability. It's pretty fucking cool. You see, in ice climbing, every single human is adaptive. Every human needs ice axes in their hands to swing into the frozen waterfall. Every person needs spikes on your feet to kick in. Every person is an adaptive ice climber. But again, I was still alone. As far as I knew, I was the first adaptive ice climber. And so we made an ice axe arm in my buddy's garage out of a rental ice tool we stole from our university. We didn't know what we were doing. We just countersunk the screw in, and it screwed into my yoga arm that I never really used for yoga. And all of a sudden, I was ice climbing. And because it looked so cool, it didn't work that great, but it looks really cool. And I went online, because now the internet did exist. That was pretty neat. And I was bragging. I shared this photo all over and said, look at me, I'm such a badass. I'm like the only disabled ice climber in the world. And I quickly found out I was wrong. This whole time that I thought I was alone, there were people all over the world with disabilities climbing. It was a super loose network, right? Like, we're still barely internet. This is back when Facebook, you still had to have an EDU address. Am I dating myself? Does anybody remember that? Thank you. I feel better. I got invited by this organization called Paradox Sports to come to a festival. And that festival was an all-adaptive ice climbing festival. And that place, for the first time, I realized I might have been the first in my world. I might have spent 22 years alone in my space, but when you find your community, all of a sudden, you are not alone anymore. It's really exhausting to be the only different person in a room, the only special person, but the cool thing, when all of a sudden, when you're in a room full of other special people, no one's special anymore. And you can just focus on the reason why you're there, which for me was climbing. Fortunately, or unluckily, because I was self-taught for almost 20 years, I was able to then pass along my skills to people like Caitlin, who was a new climber, and she could skip all the trial and error. She could skip duct taping the ladle to your stump because you thought that was the solution somehow to climbing. I could teach her how to use her stump to tie a clove hitch. And all of a sudden, this is me on a random Wednesday night last year at my home gym. There are 4 one-armed women after work in Denver who care about climbing so much that they're paying their $100 a month gym membership fee, fighting the traffic to get to the gym after work because they care so much about climbing. And you don't know what it's like to not feel alone anymore until you experience this. Paraclimbing competitions, we heard from Ben earlier today, became a thing. And I was one of the first in those. In fact, my first nationals, I won out of 1. It's cool, right? I'll take it. I paid for my airfare and registration. I showed up. But the thing is, it grew. And the more I talked about it, the more I begged people to come try it out. It grew and grew. And all of a sudden, I was 1 out of 2, 1 out of 3. I was still winning. But even cooler than winning was when I started losing. And I know I don't look too stoked in that photo to not be on top of the podium, but there's something so rewarding about helping to grow and create a gentle beast that suddenly has so much of its own momentum and energy that it turns around and eats you alive. It doesn't need you anymore. And as frustrating as it was, once I wiped the tears out of my eyes, it was actually a super beautiful thing. After my career in competition, I realized I want to get back to my roots. I want to get back to climbing outside. I want to hang out with other paraclimbers outside, like this guy, Ben Mayforth, who we heard from this morning. If you heard the sounds of a mating moose coming from King Cobra last night, that was Ben, who was very close to getting his first V10, so keep your eyes out on that. So Ben is the type of person now that I live my life for. I want to grow that community. My goal is to create a world where people like me don't have to do what I had to do. I want to create a world that the past me would be super jealous of. I'm so ready to be an old curmudgeon saying, kids today don't know how lucky they are to have a climbing gym in every town. My closest climbing gym when I was your age was 6 hours away, and it smelled like feet. And there's something about festival and community space. I can't take credit of being a founder, but this was the first ever Adaptive Climbers Festival, pretty close by, Horse Pens 40, relatively close by. And it was a good-sized crew. Like, most of these people were rock climbers with disabilities. I think Ben's actually in this photo. It's his first time he and I ever met. Fast forward to this year, we had over 300 people in this community. And while it's really rewarding to be the first of you, and the cool thing about that is everybody here in some realm, in some world, in some challenge, in some hobby, everyone here has been the first of you at something. It's scary, it's hard, it's daunting, it's oftentimes not fun. But the rewards of being that leader are something you can't see when you start out. It's okay to start something scary without having an altruistic motive. You just want to do it because it's fun. And you don't want to wait for someone else to lead the way. You never know what you might accidentally start behind you. I really challenge everyone here, because I imagine I'll see you all next year, I hope. You'll be stoked for that? I want everyone to spend the next year thinking about what you are first at, what you are breaking ground at, and then y'all get to come up here and share your story of what you did to change the world. Thank you, guys.